The OET reading test doesn't have to be scary. Many candidates don't get the score they need, not because they don't understand English, but because they're not using the right strategies. In this video, I'll guide you through parts A, B, and C of the OET reading test and give you expert strategies to improve your speed and accuracy. Let's begin by talking about part A. Part A is going to be testing your ability to locate information in different medical texts quickly. You've only got 15 minutes to answer 20 questions, so it's absolutely crucial that you use the right techniques. In this part of the reading test, we're going to be using skimming and scanning. Now, many candidates really waste time because they read every single text in detail before going to the questions. This is going to waste precious time and is not the correct strategy to use. Instead, you're going to use skimming and scanning techniques to improve your speed. Another mistake people often make is confusing similar words. In the OET reading test, you're going to come across synonyms and paraphrasing, meaning that the answers you find in the text are not always going to be worded in exactly the same way as the question. So this is another thing you need to be prepared for. Let's go through the key strategies then to improve your score in reading part A. At the start of part A, you should spend the first 30 to 45 seconds skimming each of the 4 texts. Skimming is when you move your eyes quickly over the text. You don't focus on understanding every single word, but instead you're reading to get an idea of the overall meaning or the overall idea of the text. The reason this is important is that it's going to help you know which text to go to locate each answer. For example, if text A gives an overview of a condition, whereas text B talks about drug dosage information, when you get a question that asks about particular dosages for different drugs, you know instantly to go to text B for the answer, and you won't waste precious time looking through all 4 texts again. Therefore, it's absolutely crucial that the first thing you do is skim all 4 texts. Next, go to the questions and read them carefully. Underline keywords so that you really understand what the question is looking for. For example, if a question asks, "What is the recommended dose for a child under 12?" you know that in your answer you're going to need to find a number, dosage information, and also focus on the ages. So again, looking at numbers. Now this is where scanning comes into play. Once you've identified what the question is asking you, you can go to that specific text, which you know has the answer because you've already skimmed, and then you're going to scan for keywords. Scanning is when you move your eyes around a document to look for a specific word or phrase. For example, in the previous question, where it was asking about a recommended dose for a child under 12, it can help to look for the number 12, as this will then help you locate where the answer is. Next, you're going to consider synonyms and paraphrasing. Like I said before, the answer in the text may be worded using slightly different words or phrases, so you also need to be scanning for synonyms. This is words with a similar meaning. For example, the question might ask, "What is the most common adverse reaction?" The text might say, "The most frequently reported side effect is dizziness." Now, do you see how in the question it said common adverse reaction, and in the text it said frequently reported side effect? The text has used paraphrasing, but that is where we found the answer being dizziness. So it is important that you're also scanning the text for synonyms. A final tip, prioritize the easy questions first. If you can't find an answer, move on to the next one. If you have time left at the end, just go through each question that you missed and write a quick guess. Never leave an answer blank. It's always better to put your best guess because you might still get it right. Now let's take a look at an example part A question and use these strategies to find the answer. We're going to focus on this text. I would like you to pause the video and practice skimming. Remember, skimming is where you quickly move your eyes over the text to get an idea of the overview. So spend a few seconds skimming the text and then try to summarize what the topic of the text is. Okay, well done. Hopefully you were able to identify the topic of this text is how to manage a patient after an opioid overdose. Now imagine that we've done that for all 4 texts in part A. Now we'll go to the questions. We're going to have a go at a sentence completion question, and first we're going to check check that we understand what the question is about, and then predict what the answer might be. Using the context of the sentence and the words around the gap, we can predict that the missing word is going to be a noun, and it's most likely going to be talking about the state or the appearance of the pupils. Now, I mentioned synonyms, so let's take a look at some keywords in this sentence and think of how it might be phrased differently in the text. So instead of saying an eye exam should be conducted, the text might say carried out or done or performed. Instead of saying to check the something of the pupils, it might be to evaluate, to monitor, or even to confirm. Now we're prepared for synonyms. We're going to scan the text and see if we can find the answer. Have a go at that now, pause the video, and then continue when you're ready. Well done if you were able to locate the answer. So hopefully you scanned through the text and found this sentence here, which said, then perform physical examination, evaluating size and reactivity of pupils. You can see that this used synonyms. Instead of saying conducted, it said perform, and instead of saying check, it said evaluating. So you can see how it was really valuable for us to consider the synonyms before reading. Now that you've got the strategy for part A, let's move on to part B. In part B, you're going to be reading short, common texts that are found in a healthcare setting and answer a multiple choice question for each. You're going to be tested on your ability to understand the main ideas, workplace communication, and implied meaning. Let's go through our step-by-step strategy. First, let's talk about some common challenges with Part B. Firstly, we've got the difficulty of the wording. As with Part A, sometimes the answer in the text is worded differently to how it is in the question and answer options. So that is the first difficulty. The next difficulty is distractors. This is where you see some words or phrases in the text which look like the answer, but they are in fact incorrect. Maybe they've used some of the same words or phrases from an answer option to make them look correct, but don't get caught out by these, as this is a common mistake. Let's now go through the key strategies you can use to improve your score in this part of the reading test. First, read the question and make sure you understand exactly what it's asking you to do. This will ensure that you are not reading aimlessly, but you're reading with a purpose. Is the question asking you for the purpose of a document? Are they asking an action that someone needs to take? Or are they asking for the overall meaning or the gist of the text? Once you've got that, you can go on to the next step, which is to look at the answer options. Make sure you understand the difference in meaning between the three answer options. If possible, paraphrase them in your own words to ensure that you really understand them. Next, go to the text and identify what kind of text it is. Is it giving instructions, guidelines, an update? Is it an email or a notice? This will help you to read for the correct answer. Finally, watch out for distractors. If you think you've found the correct answer, read the sentence very carefully to ensure that it actually has the exact same meaning as the answer option. A good idea can be to eliminate incorrect answers as you go, as this will help you to make your decision much more accurately and feel more confident about the answer option you choose. Another tip for Part B is to look for tone indicators. These could be words like must or should, or things like it is important that. This can indicate the tone and the specific meaning behind a sentence. Pay attention to these somewhat subtle differences in wording, as this can really make all the difference to the answer that you choose. Now let's take a look at an example Part B question and go through the strategy. Here is our text, and first we're going to start with the question. It says, according to the email, changes as a result of GP plus involve. So we're identifying the purpose of this text. It's an email, so it's going to inform us of some changes. We've identified the keywords in the question to make sure that we are reading for the right answer. So we are looking for the changes that they talk about, which are a result of this specific initiative or new project or plan, GP+. Now we're going to go to the answer options and check that we understand the differences between them. So option A is asking about being able to make phone appointments. Option B is asking about same-day appointments outside of school. And option C is talking about the ability to book late appointments at the weekend. And you can see how summarizing or paraphrasing them in my own words prepares me to see them paraphrased in the text. So this is a great exercise. words. Now we'll go to the text and read for the answer. Immediately we can see there's a distractor here because in the very first sentence it talks about appointments during evenings and weekends, but it doesn't say anything about booking late appointments at the weekend, so that's not correct. It also does mention telephone appointments, which is looking like answer A. However, that's not stated as a change as a result of GP+. It just mentions telephone appointments. So we've been very careful there not to get caught out by that distractor. If we keep reading, later in the text it says provision will need to be made for same-day appointments from 6 to 9 p.m. for children aged 0 to 16 who require treatment outside of school hours. And that matches up with option B. So that is how we get the correct answer here. Now let's move on to the final part of the reading test, which many people find is the most challenging, because in this part you're going to read longer, more complex text, and you're going to need to infer opinion, attitude, and implied meaning. The main challenge of this part of the reading test is that the texts are so much longer, and many candidates do get overwhelmed by the length and complexity. Another challenge is that you are looking for implied meaning. This means that the writer won't always explicitly state the answer to the question, but instead you need to look at the language they use to infer what they mean. And this can be a real challenge, but don't worry, we have a strategy that's going to help you. First up, similar to part B, you're going to start with the question and answer options. Read the question carefully and make sure you truly understand what it's asking you to read for. Are you looking for the opinion of the writer? Maybe they're talking about the results of an experiment that you need to read for. Are you going to imply how they feel about something? Make sure you understand this and then go to the answer options. Identify key words, and again, think of synonyms and paraphrasing. Very often, the answer will be written using different words and phrasing. So again, look at each answer option, consider how they're different, try to quickly summarize them in your own words so that you've paraphrased them, and then it's time to go to the text to find the answer. Now, this is where understanding the question is really important. If the question has asked you about the writer's opinion, you can be looking for clues in the text that indicate this. For example, words like claim, argue, criticize, or acknowledge can indicate a viewpoint. Phrases like what is most interesting can indicate something that the writer feels is important or of note. So looking for this kind of language is going to help direct you to the correct answer. Make sure you're reading in detail here. You've got to read very carefully to fully understand the meaning of the text before you choose an answer. Another important strategy is to eliminate incorrect answers as you go, as this will help to narrow it down. Remember, if one part of an answer is wrong, it means the whole answer is wrong and should be eliminated. Finally, as with part B, you're going to be looking out for distractors because they are everywhere in OET reading. Don't get caught out, read for detail and make sure you fully understand the meaning before you select your answer. Let's take a look now at an example. Here's our question, and we're going to identify what it's asking us about a comparison between Darwin and medical researchers, and then it says because. So we're looking for why a comparison is made to support what the writer is saying. Now let's go through the answer options and summarize them in our own words to make sure we understand them, see the differences between them, and are prepared for synonyms. Option A, it might say about the islands being close together or near each other. Option B, it might say that they're both researching evolution. Option C, they're both discovering, or a synonym for that could be finding out new things. And option D, both doing medical research or perhaps studies relating to medicine. Now we've dissected the question and answer options, let's go to the text. If you want to, have a go at pausing the video here and seeing if you can answer the question. When you're ready, continue with the video and I'll reveal the answer. Well done if you got the answer correct. Let's take a look at where we found it in the text. So here was our comparison between Darwin and the medical researchers. It says whereas, so whereas is a word that's often used to indicate comparison. In Darwin's case, he was discovering the fundamental principles of evolution. And then it talks about the medical researchers who were conducting investigations into specific diseases. So they weren't both looking at evolution. Doesn't talk about the islands being close together or both being engaged in medical pursuits. It is in fact that they were both trying to discover new information. Well done if you were able to get that answer correct, and don't worry if you found it hard. It just means that you need to work a little bit more on your strategy. So here's my key takeaway from this video. If you're not succeeding in OET reading, it might not be because of your level of English. It could just be that you're not using the right strategy. If you need more help and support on how to really improve your reading so that you can get the score that you need on OET test day, then why not book a free call with our Swoosh English Student Success team? They are ready and waiting to guide you through every step of the process, from creating a personalized study plan to having one-to-one sessions with your own teacher who can give you really specific feedback on your areas of strength and the areas that you need to work on. If you'd like to do that, all you have to do is click on the link in the description below this video and book a free call with our team today. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.